We shall do YouTube, go live, manager. Nothing's happening. There we go. No, it's not for kids. Save. Let that load. Let Twitch load. Twitch. Ooh, somebody followed me. Baldus the Wiz. Oh, nice. He's the guy I was talking to before I even started doing streaming. Let's see. YouTube. Then WeChat. Or what is this called? Yeah, restream, YouTube. That's fine. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. Hey there guys, welcome to another installment of the Wizard 101 Myth Monstrology playthrough. This is going to be episode 19.4, the final video I'm going to make before I finally start doing Dragonspire. I've kind of been putting it off just because I wanted to do some side dungeons and whatnot. And as you can tell by the title of this video, this is going to be an overview commentary of all of the different worlds so far, all the different dungeons, just in case anybody wants a super fast introduction recap, like you started on episode 20, which would be Dragonspire, and you just want to know a little bit more about the dungeons and whatnot. So I think we'll go check out my gardening first. I'll edit this part out. Actually, this will be good. I won't edit it out. I ended up made a little snippet, little short of it. Got rid of, or finally got all of my King Parsleys done. Put them in this new plot, and as you can see, we got one Ultra King Parsley, and then what was that 4 times 4, 16, 17 regular King's Parsleys. It looks like. Then we got this guy just chilling over here. But yeah, I think I'm going to start off with Wizard City and work my way up. I don't believe I ever did Grub, Sunken City. If I did, I sure don't remember it. I don't think that I did though, which is fine. That one's a really easy dungeon to miss, in my opinion. But even then, it's not even required. By the time you get Monstrology Animus, like, those enemies are super high level for the end of Wizard City. So, let's go to Wizard City. Good little segue. Got myself a couple strips of fried chicken and french fries, so I'm going to be munching on that. Some little, what do you call it? Food eating ASMR. Birk TTV. Hey, how's it going, bud? What is it? I'm just actually getting started streaming for the night. This is a little bit different from my normal content. I'm basically going to be doing an overview of all of the different monstrologies throughout, or all of the different kind of overviews of doing monstrology in Wizard City versus Crocotopia, all the little side dungeons like Tomb of the Beguiler, Kembalung, and stuff like that. Oh yeah, I'm eating good. Originally I was going to start at 7:30, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go make some food. Most people, I don't have a huge following, so it's not particularly too upsetting to me if somebody misses a video once or twice. But anyway, so as far as Monstrology goes, in my personal experience, I had to get to level, or all wizards have to get to level 12. However, in my experience, I was only able to get to level 12 after completing all of Wizard City, all of Colossus Boulevard, doing a couple side quests like the Smiths, and then maybe the first couple of missions in Crocotopia. And you get one Monstrology Animus for free. It is Extract Undead. And basically, by the time you get Monstrology, everything in Wizard City is irrelevant. Got it done at 10. Yeah, no, I personally went and did Colossus Boulevard, some little extra areas, just because I had to be level 12 to unlock Monstrology. That's for all players. and I did a couple side quests in between, but ultimately it was just by the time you start Monstrology, it's completely irrelevant in Wizard City. And so basically questing throughout Wizard City, Unicorn Way, Firecat Alley, Colossus Boulevard, Cyclops Lane, Triton Avenue, the Haunted Cave, you're not going to really have a lot of Monstrology to do. You don't get that till level 12, and you only really hit level 12 towards the end of Wizard City if you even did side areas and quests. So now I'm going to move on to Crocotopia. And Crocotopia is an interesting one because Crocotopia has mainly undead, manders. There are some Cyclops, Colossus, and Spider. Like those are the only ones I saw in there. They do technically have Sprite or Fairy Animus, whatever it's called. However, again, it costs 100,000 gold or 100k gold to get one Animus spell. So by the time you're starting Crocotopia, realistically, you're probably only going to have undead Animus, unless you're like me and you decided to farm for gold during an event where it was basically easy to get gold. So, nope, not this guy. Monstrologist Burke, who is up there. I can't actually get anything from her. But yeah, she's sitting up there. There is a little secret shop up there you take with the teleporter after like 10, 20, maybe 30 minutes whenever these pillars go up. You get some cool little monster minion spells like blades and shields and sacrifice, heal minions. There's, draw power, stuff like that. But realistically, throughout Crocotopia, you're probably just going to be summoning your low-level minions, like, I think, Troll minion and Golem minion, and really just going to be trying to collect whatever undead or Mander that you get, if you happen to have Mander. Now, if you're somebody who you want to try Monstrology out and you want to give yourself a whole bunch of gold at the start, that's probably a super good idea, just because starting a new character with no way of getting gold, you don't have really that good of a chance of even getting the Mander Animus. So moving on to Tomb of the Beguiler, which is actually a pretty interesting dungeon. King Zhao used to do this thing where at the end of the world, there were some little optional dungeons. We'll check that out in a second. When Wiz was not updated, you could get to Crocotopia at level 5. Oh yeah. Dude, I bet. I mean, level 10, 11, 12, that's probably like you did some side quests. I know a lot of people, they can get done with Wizard City in like 2-3 hours, maybe an hour if they're getting, hard carried. Which, I mean, it's a super easy game. The only thing you got to worry about are all of the hits that you're having to tank if you're soloing. And if you're getting sped run through it, well, not really too much that you have to worry about, I don't think. But anyway, getting back to Tomb of the Beguiler is a side dungeon that you will have access to at the very end of Crocotopia. And if I'm not mistaken, you should be about level 15 to 18, which is super underleveled. Like, you talk to this guy, I can't talk to him now, but one of his dialogue lines is basically, you're going to need an experienced team for this. And it does actually have some Monstrology minions in there. If I look over here, you get, where are they at? I don't believe I got any of the original guys, but they got some spiders. They have Karanin keepers, which are super cool. But ultimately, all of these minions in there have like over 600-700 health. And it's just not viable to go in there at level 20 even and try and solo that. I had a hard enough time at level 25 with my Pops O'Leary gear, and I was just getting wrecked. So I wouldn't recommend coming back and doing Tomb of the Beguiler until, level 30. But even then, once you hit level 30, you basically can solo the majority of the game up to Dragonspire. Like, there's not really going to be a whole lot of challenge. So moving on to Marylebone, once I get there. Wait till you get to Chrysalis. Chrysalis, I love Chrysalis Animus farming. Sadly, I'm not there yet, but you get so many cool minions if you have all the spells. Alright, so here we are in Marleybone. This one is another interesting one just because a lot of the first couple of minions you fight are just cats and rats for the Pops O'Leary arc, and then you go over to, the rooftop, and that's where or the Knight's Court area, and that's where you start getting more, golems, more undead, and I think there are some spiders in between both of them, but even then, at this point, you will have spent over like 500k gold just to get everything, all of the different animus that you need. And I would say this is probably like the most value you're going to get out of Monstrology before Mushu, or before level 30 even, just because the minions are actually pretty useful. They don't die in a couple of hits. It usually takes like 2 or 3 big hits, like 2-3 pit hits to kill them, which isn't great, but I mean, if you're doing a boss fight, you take out the boss's minion and you just want to summon a bunch of minions, that's kind of fun. Big Ben was very interesting just because the last fight had, a couple of high health enemies, and it was a bit of a challenge. I had to basically go back and forth, healing and unhealing, or healing and not healing, summoning minions, stuff like that. But it is doable. I would say Wizard City, Monstrology is impossible to do because by the time you hit level 12, you're already in the next world. So I would say you can't really do Monstrology in Wizard City. Crocotopia, you can do Monstrology in Crocotopia, and if you farm a bunch, you might actually be able to make it useful by summoning Monstrology minions. However, if you're not on a myth, it might be a little bit hard to, warrant summoning minions. And getting to Marleybone, I would say the majority of Marleybone, the main quest line, you can absolutely do Monstrology, and it absolutely is a little bit valuable in some instances. Now, this is where it gets interesting because Kensington Park is actually an optional side dungeon at the end of the world that has bosses and minions that are within the 1,000 to 2,000, 3,000 health range, if I'm not mistaken, which it's just super overpowered for Marleybone. I want to say like the highest regular, not non-boss minion that you can get will probably have less than 725 health. And at that point, it's not really worth doing. These little side dungeons are, I don't know why they made them. There's nothing really valuable in them. They're just super hard challenges at super low levels that nobody does. And I'm not even going to attempt that one just because I've done it before, and even at level 50, some people struggle to solo that sometimes. But moving on, let's go to Mushu. Mushu is an interesting world just because if you're questing enough, you're going to hit level 30 right at the very beginning of Mushu. Let me go ahead and grab this guy real quick. Ooh, there's that one extra sandstone I needed yesterday. Let's see here. Mushu. So I personally leveled up to level 30 once I hit Tatake Outpost, which is kind of like the second half of Hametsu Village. And yeah, you hit level 30 right around here if you've been doing a very small number of side quests and maybe some some second dungeon runs to get half XP. And Mushu is where you get, you'll have to spend 100k gold to get some pig animus. You also have to get, there are some golems, spiders, if you don't already have those, treants. And so yeah, you're basically, if you wanted to get every single thing in Mushu, you'd have to spend about 400,000 gold if you hadn't already up to this point. And Mushu was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed Mushu. The issue is that this is the point that you hit level 30, everything changes. You are now somebody who has multiple different blades, or should be at the level to have multiple different blades. You have AoEs typically, unless you're life and death, in which case you'll have to open up lore packs or plan accordingly, or just kind of continue hitting with single hits. And you also get Mount Olympus gear. I personally choose not to go for the Zeus hat because it sucks. Compared to this one, where it gives basically better defensive stats with the similar offensive stats. But yeah, your damage goes from maybe having 10 to 20 damage to having 45 damage, almost 10 accuracy, maybe higher for some schools with damage and accuracy. Your resist, you start being able to resist more, which gives you more survivability. And by this time, you should probably have a decent pet. I know I got this guy super early with healing, but even then, you can't really rely on pet heals. But it kind of gets to the point where you're really only attacking minions to capture them with Animus, rather than summoning minions to have a really cool boss fight. Like I want to say the Jade Oni, yeah, the Jade Oni, what is his name? What is that imp's name in Tree of Life? Yukai, like some of the bosses that have like 7,000 health towards the very end of Mushu, even some of the Onis with like their less than 2,500 health, like those are really the only fights I could personally argue that it was worth having a couple minions. Maybe even for some of the warlords, but even then, all of the warlords are pigs. None of them are cows. Like, if you want to get some Monstrology experience, you're basically going to want to just power through it, hit yourself, and hope your minion doesn't kill the bosses before you to get the most out of it. And even then, Mushu, I had a lot of fun with it because there are a lot of different pigs, a lot of different enemies. You got some undead guys, some undead cows, which is pretty neat. A bunch of different pigs, some spiders, but ultimately, oh yeah, there is also the Onis, which I personally chose not to get up to this point, just because I wanted to conserve my gold and then ended up spending it on something else. But if you want to get all of the Monstrology, you'd have to have 500k gold, one for trees, 100k for trees, 100k for pigs, spiders, colossus, and then Oni on top of that, which is pretty interesting. So moving on, I think really just going to talk about Mount Olympus. So let me port there. See if I can get a quick cheeky port to the bazaar real quick. Kind of save on some time. Wizard City. Yeah, that's some good fried chicken. Alright, so Mount Olympus is a level 30 dungeon that you unlock, obviously. At level 30, you go to talk to Cyrus Drake, and he sends you to go back and forth between Harold Argison and what is his name? Romulus or something. One of the Cyclops over there. And you eventually get to teleport to this, use this chariot to teleport to this extra area. And you get to Aquila. The first dungeon, level 30 dungeon, Mount Olympus, is actually quite hard. I'll just kind of go in there and show just for content, but there are a couple of things that you can monstrologize in here. It is Cyclops and elephants, which the elephant is an optional side monster, not a boss, but a monster. And if you want to go check that out, I think I had a video on it. I can't remember what episode specifically that it was. I'll try and find that. But yeah, just to kind of check this out, let me see here. Playlist. Here's all of these. Yeah, so I did an episode on this. It should be episode 16. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Stop talking. There we go. So, I did an episode on this, episode 16, and barely got by with the skin of my teeth on this one. This one was very, very difficult, and you'll see what I'm talking about here in a second. There are 1, 2, 3 boss fights. Each of them have over 3,000 health. They use cheats and extra, damage cheats. They have minions that have well over 600 health. I think it's just under 700. But yeah, okay, so never mind. It's just under 900. You can try and monstrologize some of the Cyclops, but ultimately, it's going to be hard to try and survive whilst you're also getting hit, taking damage. Like, it's just not a whole lot of fun. Now, what I will say is these minions do come in handy for Mushu and some other places. But for the majority of the part, they're pretty difficult to fight. There's actually one fight in particular where it gave me like the most trouble in the game, where you have to fight 4 or 3 of those Cyclops and then what is it called? A storm minion that basically has comparable stats, comparable damage, arguably more damage actually. And it's just tough, dude. Like, if you're planning on doing a solo Monstrology build, this is going to be like one of the hardest things you do, considering the fact that you won't have any of your Mount Olympus gear until you beat the dungeon and then farm multiple times for it. So going in there was not fun. Towards the middle, the end was pretty alright. It was pretty standard. I was able to survive. But yeah, Mount Olympus, unless you don't already have some minions saved up, and unless you're not willing to do what I do, where I summoned a 75 crown minion just because every player gets 75 crowns. I summoned him on Ares just because I was so close to beating him, but I kept messing up on my strategy. It is technically doable, but even then you're going to have to buy treasure cards and stuff like that. So, let me go back to my house real quick. Ultimately, I'd have to say, overall, Wizard City is irrelevant in this conversation. You're not going to have Monstrology until after Wizard City. The only thing that you can do roleplay-wise as a Monstrology build is maybe summon a Golem minion or a Troll minion, but even then, the only value Wizard City has is going back and filling up your Monstrology index, at level 12. Crocotopia, as I told you guys, that's where it gets more interesting. You get to do a lot more stuff. And it's possible. I did it. It was fun. Going on to Marleybone, that was fun. The end there got a little bit hectic, but still pretty fun. Absolutely doable. And then I'm gonna say Mount Olympus comes before Mushu, just because that's about the level that you would get it at. So Mount Olympus going into Mushu. Mount Olympus is hard, but it is not insurmountable. However, I also had the ability to summon 3 minions, considering the fact that I'm a Myth Wizard. Other classes won't get that. And then Mushu, absolutely doable, absolutely easy, but mostly because the dynamic changes. You're no longer relying on minions to keep you, help kill the enemy. You're summoning minions just for the fun of it, really. Like, you can solo the entirety of Mushu after any class gets Mount Olympus gear, potentially without it, but I went ahead with it, with the Mount Olympus gear. And Mushu is a knock, you just knock it out of the park. It's an easy win. So moving on, Dragonspire, I don't expect to be too terribly difficult. The only things that'll give me trouble are probably the bosses with more HP later on down the line, considering I don't really get an upgrade in gear until after I fight certain bosses. But yeah, that is my overall commentary, personal experience on Monstrology so far. So, with that, I don't really have much else to talk about. I'm wondering if I should continue the stream, do some stuff. I might do some dungeons on the side. Yeah, I'll do some dungeons on the side. Oh, you know what? I forgot to talk about Kemba Lung. I'll probably splice this into the YouTube video. But before I leave for the night, Kemba Lung is an optional dungeon that you get at level 25. The reason I forgot to talk about it earlier and am going to insert it into the video and let you know that I almost forgot to add it to the video is because it's a pretty worthless dungeon. If I'm being brutally honest, aside from just how annoying my RNG was there, Kemba Lung is not valuable at all at level 25. Like, I really feel like the devs missed an opportunity with a really cool atmosphere dungeon being at level 25 because all of the enemies are exceptionally hard. I did this I did this dungeon like 2 days ago at level 39. Got some decent XP from it, so I'm not going to be too upset about it. However, it's hard. It is absolutely hard. If you come here at level 25, I do not believe that you can genuinely solo it without having access to additional treasure cards that are outside of your level, or using minions that are so far above this level. Like, even if I even used some of the Mount Olympus Cyclops minions on the Wooden Key boss and the final boss. The final boss I tried to solo without minions, which was a dumb idea. But even then, my minions would have died. My minions would have gotten in the way of my strategy. Like, overall, I don't personally believe that at level 25, any school can reasonably expect to solo this without having strategies outside of a vanilla solo strategy. Like, you would need treasure cards, you would need way higher minions than what you currently got. Did I talk about the rooftops? I don't think that I did. Man, I'm just forgetting everything. So, with Marleybone, at level 40, you get an additional dungeon unlocked. And that is Barkingham Palace. Based on Buckingham Palace and centered around, some heist going on with the now past queen, who the queen is now the real life inspiration to the Barkingham Palace. Queen has just passed, Queen Elizabeth. However, this dungeon. No, I'm going to start that over. That was terrible. Alright, so lastly on my list, I'll probably splice this in at the end of Marleybone. I might keep this at the very end. We have Barkingham Palace. Barkingham Palace is a series of 3 dungeons which you get at level 40. You gain access at level 40. And honestly, this dungeon is very hard, very tough. In my personal opinion, I do not believe anybody can reasonably look to solo Barkingham Palace at level 40 with any minions you have available to you at level 40. It's if you're doing a Myth Monstrology playthrough, like, it is very difficult. The main hall dungeon is probably the best example of that. You have a boss that has multiple different cheats for some reason, where he constantly shields himself, constantly casts Rebirth, constantly just regularly will throw out heal spells and undo all of your progress towards, damaging him. And this is a level 40 dungeon. Not to talk about immediately after fighting him, you fight him again with another boss who will summon minions, cheat smokescreen. Like, this is tough. I personally chose not to solo this area because I knew it was going to be difficult. And even then, we had a bit of a hard time. Like, me and the other guy who was doing the main hall, we were just fleeing back and forth, back and forth. Now, there is a little bit of Monstrology that you can do as far as capturing and that is for the Noxious Gas Golem. I think that is the only one, because he is a golem. However, everything else is a cat or a dog or a horse. Very interesting. Or an elemental. And then lastly, with the Rooftops Dungeon over here, the final dungeon in this trio, I would say this one is exceptionally hard. Personally, I chose not to solo Monstrology at level 40, level 41. However, personally, I don't think I would have been able to do this if I would not have been able to complete this dungeon without cheesing it, without killing the minions and fleeing and hoping that they don't respawn with certain boss fights. That's just my take on Barkingham Palace. It's a very, very fun dungeon, you know, very fun trio of dungeons. You know, you got to really think about, if you're going in here with one or two or three other level 40 friends, you're going to have to kind of be on top of your game. It's quite challenging, kind of like Mount Olympus. But yeah, that's my opinions on all of the Monstrology worlds. Go home and do another recap, because I messed that up terribly. So, to wrap this up, with Monstrology, my personal opinion is for Wizard City Monstrology, it's completely irrelevant. You are not going to have access to any Monstrology capture spells or minions until after you beat Wizard City. You would have to do every single side quest, and even then, you would have to progress the final area just to be able to get to level 12, in my opinion. That is difficult. Moving on to Crocotopia, you are probably going to have to spend upwards of 300,000 gold to get a Mander Animus, Cyclops Animus, Colossus Animus, Spider Animus, as well as you'll have a free Undead Animus from when you hit level 12. However, and this is probably one of the best worlds to do Monstrology in. You've got a lot of different options if you manage to give yourself the time to go find that gold, or if you just give it to yourself from previous account. That's probably the best option, because Monstrology is a very expensive hobby early game for wizards who are selling gear for 200 to 300 within the first two worlds. Moving on to the very end of Crocotopia, there's an optional side dungeon called Tomb of the Beguiler. It's not fun. I personally do not think that it is worth soloing Monstrology, the Tomb of the Beguiler. I don't know that it's possible to really attempt a full-on Monstrology roleplay there, if you want to be capturing Animus as well as hitting as well as summoning minions. Like, you're going to have to sacrifice on those, and that's really what happens in the next world, after the next world, which is Marleybone. Marleybone is an exceptional world for Monstrology, just because you get to do a little bit of everything. You get to do a little bit of soloing on your own. You can summon minions that you fight regularly. You are going to have to get where is it? You're going to have to get Undead, which you'll have for free. Spider Animus is optional. Golem Animus is optional. And yeah, I think those are the only two. But even then, if you got all of those going into Marleybone, that would be an additional 200,000 gold just to be able to Monstrology a lot of the minions that you're going to have access to. Now, if you do all that, and you're capturing everything, you're going to have a fun time, in my opinion. Aside from all the grindy bits where you have to grind undead and golems and spiders, it was super fun, especially there towards the end. The Meowiardi fight, just super fun, in my opinion. At the very end of Marleybone, there's a optional dungeon called Kensington Park. It's basically the same thing as Tomb of the Beguiler. It is an optional dungeon that is well above the expected level requirement for being at the end of Marleybone, and it's just not worth it. There are a lot of golems there. Like, I think it's primarily all golems, but even then, it's going to be very difficult. A lot of those enemies have 15, 18, 2,000, 2,500 plus health. Just going off of memory, like, it's not worth it in my opinion. And then moving on, we have a bit of an oddity because at level 30, you get to Mount Olympus, and you typically, any player questing at a genuine speed would typically hit level 30 at the very beginning of Mushu before you end the first area of Mushu, which is, Hametsu Village and Tataki Outpost. And at that point, you go into Mount Olympus. So talking about Mount Olympus for a bit, it is exceptionally challenging. However, it is doable. I personally did that. It was not fun for 2 of the fights, that being, fighting all 3 Cyclops at the sky balcony with that one bronze eagle guy, as well as Ares. Ares is probably the hardest boss in that dungeon, in my opinion. Zeus is not as hard as Ares, I don't think. But Ares, he will cheat damage you every couple of rounds, so you've got to stay on top of healing. You can't really summon minions because every time he gets hit directly, he will do damage to your minions and basically one-shot them if you don't have minions that are over, like, 700 health-ish. So, yeah. And then we get to Mushu. Mushu was fun. Mushu was probably the most fun I've had with Monstrology yet. And that is specifically because everything there is basically monstrologible except for horses and cows. And even then, some of the cows are undead. So you would have to have extract pig and extract undead, extract golem, extract spider, extract treant. Like, that is 1, 2, 3, 400,000 gold plus a free animus that you get at the beginning of Monstrology. Just to Monstrology everything in Mushu. Oh, wait. Let me rephrase that. You would need undead, Colossus, extract spider, extract treant, extract pig, as well as extract elephant, bringing the total up to 500,000 gold, which I personally chose not to go for the Oni. That's kind of something you would do maybe at the very end. There's no reason to go for them, in my opinion, unless you want them in your houses. But even then, nobody's going to do that at level 30, 35, level 40. So, yeah. Mushu was fun. However, this is where the biggest flaw in Monstrology starts to show, if it hasn't already. Once you get high enough level, it does not really matter what minions you summon. They're going to take away from your ability to capture bosses and minions. So you're going to have to choose. Do you solo it and tank through and summon 0 minions to be able to get the most capture? Or do you summon and try and hope for the best and hope that you can capture even though your minions are going to kind of take away from your ability to capture with Monstrology? And that's basically going to be the entire rest of the game from this point on. I would say Mushu, a little bit of Mushu, Marleybone, and Crocotopia are the best worlds to really experience Monstrology in. However, at that point, after that, it really starts to become irrelevant. Nobody's going to go into Darkmoor and do Monstrology because it's just so hard. It's not a viable strategy. It would really only be a content thing. Like, hey, let's see if I can do this, and oh, no, all of my minions are dying immediately. The only exception to that would be having, 2 20k, 30k health bosses, and even then, they do not hit as hard as the 20, 25, 30,000 health bosses in Darkmoor, as well as they're probably going to cause trigger a bunch of cheats that get them killed super fast, putting all of that time and energy into capturing them to waste. So that's basically my opinion on Monstrology. Super fun early game, super useless late game. Like, I want to say after, even after Zafari, going into Avalon, I highly would recommend just capture everything. Don't summon minions because you can solo everything. I've done it before on another myth, and it was fun capturing. It was fun getting all those different dragons and robots and draconians and all of these other things. However, it's not really valuable in a fight. So, apologize to break the bad news to anybody who was high level hoping to experience Monstrology. Hope anybody who tuned in got a decent review of Monstrology so far, but I wanted to make this just kind of at the very end of Mushu, just because going into Dragonspire, that's, the next couple of worlds, it's going to get progressively less valuable to have minions, which is very sad to say, because having minions was pretty cool. You can make house guests with them and have them walking around and set the atmosphere for your houses, but even then, that's really all they do. The only exception to Monstrology, in my opinion, for high-level stuff, is to have minions that are immune to damage. However, because they're immune to damage, they are a bit difficult to farm in a reasonable way. So, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to finish eating the food that I never got to and start doing some side dungeons, get some gear, and we shall get on to Dragonspire tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, thanks for tuning in.